Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Fantasy Football University, FFU, coming at you yet again in the regular season, week five, and we are in a very special episode for you guys today. I
Surprise.
surprise, bonus. I am Mr. Budakusas. I'm here with Mr. Tom Lang. Mr. Lang, how you doing, sir?
Doing great on a surprise show.
Surprise, bonus, etc., etc., etc. It's a good point in the season. 4 weeks have gone by and nobody's been on a bye yet. To
Until
really
now.
until now, to basically give you guys a real. We have a better understanding of what's going on in the season. Players that are doing well, players that are not doing well, teams that are doing well, teams that aren't doing well, trends, etc., etc., etc. And most importantly, guys that you could go get, guys that you can cash in on and any of the transactions you can make at this point to kind of hook you up for the rest of the season. So I had a trade that you didn't know about in one of my other leagues go through. So I wanted to get your opinion on it. We'll talk about it right here on the show here. So
Sure.
I traded Abuka and Pearsall for Brian Thomas Jr.
I think you
Now, I give you the logic. I don't think the dominance of Ibuka continues, not in the way that it's been. They got weapons coming back, Evans coming back, Godwin's getting worked in, McMillan's coming back, on top of the fact of he's overperforming on his level of targets, which we'll get into today. And Pearsall is Kittle's coming back, plus he had the injury situation. I'm worried about the 49ers in general.
I
And
think I think that was a bad trade.
okay.
I
I,
mean,
I,
you know,
I
you got what I will say this though, guys, you know, you
calling my shot.
you call your shot, you look for what you want. If those guys were in quotes, I guess, depth because you were able to establish other positions around, players around it, or if you're like a Brian Thomas and you're like he should bounce back as a number one wide receiver in the in
Yes.
the NFL and in fantasy, then yeah, I mean you're calling your shot. If you're really thinking that Emeka Buka's targets are going to go down, I just don't see it happening. He's developed a really strong connection with Baker, and he's a vital role in that offense at this point. Um, Same thing with Pearsall when he's healthy. I mean, if and when he's healthy. I mean, I'd rather take 4 to 5 targets from Pearsall because he's going to catch them over 7 to 10 targets from Brian Thomas that he's not catching them right now. So
Well, right now, but I mean, you can't only be captured by by things that exactly have
I
happened. You
think
have to be able to project
I, I
forward.
I
But
I personally think that if you were to reestablish this trade, I think I mean, again, you called your shot, you did your
Mhm.
thing, that's fine. Um, But I think if you were able to, I think you potentially were able to just either trade a Buka or Pearsall for that specific one player that's not producing.
it wasn't going to work. And also I needed.
Or I could have, said, you could have went Ibuka and Pearsall, Ibuka or Pearsall with a lower caliber player and pushed him over. I just think that you may have. I mean, again, you called your shot. That's
Mhm.
fine. If you have the roster behind it to back it, that's perfect. But you definitely made another team better as well, which is great.
I'm sure in his mind I did. I'm that this is again everything is speculation. Everything is what you believe about. And by the way, we should get into that now. I don't know if people do, but me personally, the way that I think about trades or acquiring players, I think of them like assets, like almost in a portfolio. So if you could call your shot if you believe the stock on that player is going to go up, then you hold or you try to buy. If you believe that they're going to go down, then you sell. And like, it's why it's easier for me to trade away guys who have been crushing it because to me it's like I don't know how much higher their stock could possibly get.
Yeah.
That's
No.
sort of my logic there.
Yeah.
And
No, I get that.
Brian Thomas is a current player at the moment. Like, say what you want about the situation thus far. His stock is about as low as it could possibly be. It can only go up from here. So
Yeah. No, I could see that.
that's sort of my logic on it. And that's just one example. I mean, we had some other
Yeah, we had some other trades. I
we
mean,
had
I feel like we did, we were planning the show, and there was a lot of a lot of looking at other teams and trying to see what was going to happen, and trying to have conversations with other players in our fantasy football leagues. And there's one league that I had a massive amount of depth, and really young star power, and um overperforming performances from last week. And I was able to compile a trade to go grab Josh Allen, a player that I was targeting early in drafts, but I just couldn't pull the trigger on this one. It's a 6 point PPR. Um,
Because, by the way, rightfully so, there's a limit to how high we go on
Yeah,
quarterbacks.
no, no, no,
I
for
mean,
sure. But this is how you really, I believe, you get them, is by, seeing who's performing, seeing what's happening, taking players that, in late in rounds, and, maximizing your opportunity. So in one league, and this is a league that Billy and I are both commissioners in, and we have, I mean, Bailey, if you want to explain the trade setting that we have in this league, because you might want to kind of bring a little bit more oomph into your league settings, instead of it being for everybody to vote on stuff.
well, um, yeah, how many? There's a couple different angles to this. First of all, we should probably, this is now a good time to have a quick explanation about when trades should go through and about the default voting structure, etc. And so we need to establish this now. And I think that there's some nuance that isn't happened online. So let's start with the two extremes. If you start from the position of all trades should go through, then you're running into the problem, quote unquote, of, well, what if a team is colluding with another team to give them, a ridiculous player for something else or whatever? So you need some sort of a mitigation against that. However, when you have a mitigation against that and you do some sort of a voting structure, people have their own biases. People have their own reasons that they wouldn't want a trade to go through. Maybe they're playing somebody and they think they're getting the better end of the deal. First of all, nobody knows who gets the better end of the deal until the end of the season anyway. But so, not to mention that sometimes the voting structure could take 9,000 years. It takes forever trying to corral people. So we have decided that instead of having a voting body to allow a trade to go through, we've kind of morphed towards, and it's becoming more and more popular, there it's just, hey, listen, whether it's just the commissioner themselves or a commissioner and like maybe a commissioner and like another jury duty, let's say, gets to decide, okay, is it going through, is it not going through? And then we set, and then we if they agree, and then they send it through. But we've done this in our league where Tommy and I are the commissioners in our league, where we just decide if a trade is going to go through, we go through. If Tommy and I are involved in a trade, then we recuse ourselves and another person within the league have a quick discussion, we send it through. Out of all the trades that have happened in our league, everyone has gone through. And so just to be extra clear with people, and because this is another thing that gets missed online, because some people who run certain leagues say, hey, every trade goes through other than collusion. And I don't think that's right. I think that there's two other very, very important considerations. And this has 100% happened in every single league that I have been in every year since I've started playing, however many thousands of years ago. Okay, no
What
collusion.
do you,
We all
what do you, what do you, what are you, a vampire?
no collusion. And the other two, if somebody is checked out, no, they cannot. They cannot make a trade if you know that they're checked out. The other situation is that if somebody, you know that somebody doesn't know enough, this should be coming up less in your leagues, but if you know that they don't know enough to be able to make an agency trade in their own mind, then somebody has to step in and say it. Hopefully this happens less in your leagues where you're playing with people who know what they're doing. However, I just want to emphasize the checked out situation because that happens all the time, and there's never that happens way more than anything else, and it's aggravating to me personally. So but for those reasons, almost all trades should go through completely, and it doesn't matter if you think of something lopsided. So, case in point, Thomas the Tank Engine over here, he had a trade go through that I thought was lopsided, not in his favor. But if if
All
things
right. So
work
do
out,
you,
yeah, go ahead.
thank you for the long explanation. Um, but the key point is the trade that was what I was about to discuss was basically, um, you know, there's a player in Josh Allen that I was looking to basically draft, but I was not looking to draft him in the second round. There was some key component players that have been putting the pieces of the puzzle together on the fantasy football, numbers wise, and obviously on the NFL field. And, after last week's performance, we've been very high on Dak Prescott all season. He's been not as high through the first couple weeks, but last week he overperformed. And I don't think he's going to underperform and go back to what he was. I think he's going to do fairly well moving forward, but not to the numbers of what Josh Allen produces week in, week out. So I compiled some of my depth. Quinston Judkins, who was technically my running back four on my roster. Last week prior to, I was able to pick up, which we call I have Omer and Hampton as my third running back, but I was able to pick up RJ Harvey on the waivers and also compile another trade to pick up Charbonnet. But the trade basically was totaled Prescott, Rashi Rice, who's still inactive until week 7, which again, this could be a bite in my butt for letting him go, and Quinton Judkins for Josh Allen, Sam Laporta. I think based on what I had given up, I wasn't really taking too much away from my primary roster. I did have to take one player of Quentin Judkins, who's been performing right now, and obviously Rashee Rice, who was going to be a plug and play, basically moving forward after his suspension. But with more of a comfortability position of Josh Allen being more sustainable in that onesie position, especially being a 6 point per touchdown. This guy's basically performing every single week. He's going to perform every single week, barring injury. I think I made a good move. And same thing with the person that you're trading for, trading against. You want to look at their team. You want to make sure that they're making, valuable assets to be taken over. You can't just be completely one-sided. I do think that the person I did trade with did get the better hand of it, but I got what I wanted from it. And not only that, but this league also is a keeper league. So you keep them in the position that if they were drafted or if they're waivers, they're kept in the 10th spot. So there are some keeper opportunities in these tradeaways and some trade fours that are extra value assets. So that's my spiel. And just if not to talk about how many trades we did and what we did, we want to obviously help you guys so you could understand the numbers and whatnot. So that's the perspective of today's show.
Yeah, and Tommy's perfectly willing to even if me or anybody else thinks that Tommy didn't get the better end of the deal, that he went too far, it doesn't matter. People are allowed to call their shots, yeah, and trades sometimes they look awful to start with, and then they look out really great for the person after the fact. You don't know. So honestly,
I will say I'm not a huge fan of my roster right now because of the depth that I lost, the depth that I lost. But again, you reap what you sow. The good thing is that this is not in this specific league, it is a very shallow bench. So there's a lot of waiver opportunities. People make some moves here and there. So, you could pick somebody up, like I picked up RJ Harvey previous week.
yeah, okay. But we got to remember, like sometimes things that happen like that are ridiculous, that'll never happen in most of people's leagues. RJ Harvey should not have been on most of the people's waiver wires. So, for the
He was
most,
though.
yeah, he was on
And it's
ours, but we
yeah,
looked at it's like 80, 90%. So
but it was
no.
also, it's also a waiver system, a revolving waiver system. So everybody has a chance.
I understand that, but you got to remember, like the information that we give people has to apply to the greatest vast majority of people.
Oh, I know.
That's why, like when we talk about when we talk waiver wire, I don't even talk about people over 80% because it's like, and also a lot of leagues that, sometimes there's just things that are just like within the churn of people that aren't even actually playing and stuff. So, yeah. So that should not have been on your waiver wire, but God bless you if it was. Yeah, and also just something to mention with the trades, and I can't just can't. We don't have to go on and on about proper protocol, proper this, proper that. The long story short, there is that again, just to reiterate, we're beating a dead horse. You don't know how things will end up working out. And as long as there is no collusion or somebody checked out, all the trades should be going through. So we have some interesting considerations and some interesting targets and tradeaways to talk about today. Um, you want to jump right in? We got any other fun notes about our leagues here? Because I'm
No,
actually excited to bring this up to
I
people.
think we should bring up the stuff because they're probably going to lose a lot of our audience if we keep talking about our leagues.
All right. So yeah, let's just jump right in. We got a little bit of math to share today also. So we'll try I'll try to keep that as straightforward as possible. But let's start at wide receivers. So I wanted to mention something important that, Tommy and I say all the time, which is targets are king, and they are, and it absolutely matters. But any yo-yo could go look up a target list and, see who's getting lots of targets, et cetera, et cetera, and targets per game, targets per, like anybody could look at that. My personal favorite stat is something called target points per target, which we're going to get into. It's not only how many targets that you're getting, it's what are you doing with those targets. And there is a limit to how well you're performing with those targets. And are people performing better with those targets than what would be the expectation? And some people would be performing less than. Let me give you a great example to illustrate. Last year, one of our favorite players, NWI, you can imagine how high his points per target were. He would have like one target, one touchdown for 50 yards every single game
It'd be like 5.6 points per target.
basically scoring a touchdown and 50 yards on every single play. We would say, even though it was a really interesting run, Tommy and I would say all the time, like, okay, maybe don't chase this per se because this is an overperforming player. This is overperforming. You can't expect this kind of thing to continue, yada yada yada.
Yeah, the
Where
only thing you would chase with that is basically your anytime touchdowns in betting.
Right. Whereas, if we were to talk about a player who just consistently just gets targets, 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 and maybe is not making lots and lots of catches because of X, Y, or Z reasons, maybe there's a chance for them to perform better. But if you were to extrapolate that into like this year, like, hey, listen, this is a guy who gets a whole lot of targets and his points per target are not that good because he's not doing much with it, but there's a chance for a regression to the mean. So we wanted to bring that up as a way to identify players who have been underperforming and overperforming in the first quarter of the year. And so let's get into that right now. So just looking at wide receivers, if you just look at the target list, it just targets. It's not that mysterious who's been getting the lead in targets. There's a few funny names on here. Top of the list obviously is Puka. Puka's also the number one scoring wide receiver right now. So he's basically a gold standard. And if you go down the list, so here's the names in the target list. So Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Quentin Johnston, Drake London, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Ted McMillan, Devontae Adams, Roma Dunze, and JSN. I think one of the only um not questionable, like one of the only surprising names there is probably Chris Olave. And so
I mean, I don't believe it's surprising because the team is playing from behind so much, so they got to throw the ball so much.
this
So
is this is a fair point.
and we made very, we made a very big clear, very clear statistic on this that, he could be somebody that you could plug in because of the amount of targets he has in flex. Um Now I did that. I don't think you agree with that at all, because he technically was not a part of our must start Saints guys. But yeah, I mean, I think Chris Olave is a great talent. We know what kind of talent he is. He's just on a really bad offense that but again, he's getting targets.
Right. And obviously it's for anybody who knows what's been going on with Olave, it's obviously we're gonna, like when we talk about the math here, his points per target is currently very low. So according to the metric we're about to discuss, he's underperforming. So therefore, quote unquote, he would be a trade target. That having been said, you don't just look at a piece of math or a piece or a number and then make a determination from there. You have to have some sort of a narrative behind it to be able to defend why. So I would be wary about trading for Chris Olave just because he's getting a whole lot of targets and he's not doing a lot with them because of the team, etc. So here's some numbers for you guys to check out. So the average of the top 24 scoring wide receivers right now is 1.89 points per target. And just out of curiosity for me, I was looking at Puka. Puka's actually slightly under that. He's at 1.77, but that's a fairly good barometer, like as to be like, okay, this is what you'd expect from good performing wide receivers. This is the kind of ratio you'd expect. They're getting receptions, they're occasionally getting touchdowns. And it's pretty standard across the board if you go look at it. So to me, if I'm looking for trade for and trade away, I'm looking at guys that are significantly above that metric and significantly below that metric. And so let me throw some names at you that could be a trade away candidate because perhaps they're overperforming to their current expectations. So top on this list, um, top on this list that I have is, believe it or not, it's Romeo Dobbs, and he might not have even been on your team up until very recently. So, we've been I now. By the way, we should also mention Tommy. Don't hear what we're not saying about some of the guys we're going to talk about. This doesn't mean you drop them for nothing or you sell them for nothing. Right now, they're very, very high. Go sell them for a haul. That's the point because it doesn't mean that they're going to just stop performing. So Romeo Dobbs is probably likely to have a pretty good season, but his efficiency has been off the charts thus far. You're likely at this point, he's probably as high as he's going to be. You could probably sell him for a pretty good asset at this point. So his points per target at the moment is 2.5 and change. Um, Christian Watson's going to come back. There's a lot of options in Green Bay. The ascension of Golden is there. His price is at his absolute highest. You could probably make a move and sell and get something if you want. Another name like that I just brought up earlier was Amika Buka. His points per target is over two. Um, my logic at the time was I'm happy to go get Brian Thomas Jr. because Mike Evans is coming back. Jalen McMillan will be coming back. Godwin continues to get ascended and worked in. On top of him having just in general, you guys are seeing the efficiency there. Like it's a level of efficiency that can't continue.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying with Emeka Buka at times, but I mean, Romeo Dobbs really, he's been. I mean, again, he's that offense is not consistent. You're talking about consistency. So if you're gonna, I mean, but like if you're gonna try to trade somebody away, nobody's gonna trade for Romeo Dobbs. It's
Oh,
gonna be like,
I disagree with you.
all right, well, it's gonna be like the same thing with like say like Jalen Waddle. Let's just say, you know, uh, Hill goes down, Jalen Waddle his stock rises because he's pretty much the only wide receiver in that offense.
Okay. Remember what we're pointing out, and this is actually is a good point. So Tommy's identifying that like first of all, Tommy can we're having this conversation. We're imbuing the answers to upon these guys that maybe other people won't see. And also, it's difficult for Tommy to, and even me, it's like, okay, if I'm going to sell somebody that's this valuable, I need to get a haul in return. So let me give you the next name that's going to be sound blasphemous to everybody. Cortland Sutton. And we like Cortland Sutton. But according to these metrics, and honestly, if you just watch the games, he is overperforming from an efficiency standpoint. I mean, Bonix Bonix is throwing him targets, but these are high value targets in and around the end zone. Now, it could be that it's like, okay, that's sort of what that offense is. This is what they're doing. They're going to be higher value targets than would be the average. Okay, that could be the narrative of it. Okay, if that's the narrative, then stray away. However, if I'm looking at it, this is what I see. More and more wide receivers in Denver are becoming more and more relevant. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, it immediately come to mind. Both of the running backs are becoming more and more involved. Devins is doing great, and Harvey now is becoming more and more involved. Nix has a habit of running the ball a lot. These are all reducing the the value of somebody like Sutton. And right now, Cortland Sutton his value cannot be any higher. It's about as high as it could possibly be. You could probably cash this in and get something great. it doesn't mean that Sutton is going to be bad for the rest of the season. It means that you're just looking at it like in terms of stocks. Like if his stock is worth 100 right now, but it's worth 80 for the rest of the season, well, you could sell it for 100 and then have, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just that's all this is. I know it's a hard sell to people who want to keep these guys. Do you think that, Tommy, here's a question for you then. Like, do you think that how much of that becomes a hard sell to people? Like, is it, do you get in your own way sometimes with your mind to be like, it's hard to sell somebody who's been performing well? Because you tend to only want to offer people who's only ever not been performing well.
Well, no, I mean, from the
Not this
trade that we
past one,
just,
right?
I mean, it's not really the case. I mean, you have sometimes have to start from a level and not give your whole bag. You know, selling something is not selling everything all up front, you know, at times because you want to sometimes keep your values. But um I just think that it is difficult sometimes to move a piece that is performing, but if you believe that they're going to start underperforming or they're overperforming their area, then yeah, you have to call your shot. Again, it may not work your way. It may work 100% for the other person or might work for the both of you guys. But if you're watching football, which I know we all do, if we understand what teams are progressing or regressing or watching, you know, how the routes are being run, so on and so forth, and seeing that other players are going to start getting an uptick in snaps, it might make sense to make some of these move some of these players. Like I agree with Cortland Sutton's production, you know, basically being somebody to trade away. Um, he was definitely one of our guys. He was pretty much our one of our guys in the off season. But it wasn't, you know, again, it was a draft target, right? It wasn't say, hey, we're going to get this guy and not think about trading him as the season goes on. We didn't anticipate him being the wide receiver 11 at this point in the year. And if he's getting those targets in the end zone, there's three, he has, you know, 4 games, 3 touchdowns. Um, he is somebody that you pretty much want to say, hey, listen, I'm going to take this value and go get one of these underperforming guys that I know is going to actually start moving it up a little bit. And, you know, it could be a balancing effect for a period of time, but it could be a league winning move for the future.
Yep. Off the top of your head, do you have any names that you would consider tradeaways? You gotta remember now, for people who know what they're like, who know fantasy, like So what type of players would you trade away off the top of your
So,
head?
so personally, Winston Judkins is somebody that I would trade away based on the environment he is around on his team. I think that he's going to be a solid RB2, but I don't think he's going to be a RB1 or a low end RB1 week in, week out. And it's because of the offense he's on. They're scatterbrained with quarterback right now. Potentially, Dylan Gabriel might be starting this upcoming week in London. Then they're on bye, right? I think they're on bye week 6
I'll check
because they're
that.
yeah. But they're on bye. There's just so much, and it does go in a position of, hey, there's so much opportunity for Judkins to be productive. But we all know the more you touch the ball, the more likeliness you have to potentially injure yourself, re-injure something, whatever the case is. The whole offense cannot revolve on Judkins, and we see that actually on the Saints. The whole offense does not revolve on Kamara. Kendra Miller has been getting involved heavily in vital areas as well too. So, I think right now is the peak. It could get a little bit higher, a little bit above the peak, but I think that his production is going to slowly dissipate to a point like where you're talking RB2, not RB1 numbers. So this is definitely the time to sell on him. And again, it's not like you're giving him away for nothing. You're selling on value, and sometimes you may have to add a little bit more of a piece to the puzzle to get exactly what you want. I'm not telling you to trade Judkins for you know, a wide receiver too. I'm saying package him with somebody to get exactly what the positions you need on your roster. Could be a quarterback, could be a very high tight end. that you're looking for to establish more of a positional standard.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, even if you don't agree with what we're saying on a player, you have to at least agree with the logic, which is you trade a player at their peak or when their value is at its highest, and you go get a guy when his value is at its lowest. That's why trades are hard because you have to convince yourself that, hey, I'm going to get a guy that might not be in equal in value now for, you know what I mean, to go get something
Yeah.
else. It's a
And
hard
and
sell to people.
and I will just, to reemphasize, our off-season show when we were talking about, drafts and draft strategy. Um, this is why you grab running backs at a value, and also early in the draft. You have to really get these heavy running backs, and then you can establish your receiver and pass catcher game. But then at the 6, 7, 8 turn, there was so much value at running back this year that a lot of these running backs can technically be your RB2, but they're your RB4, RB5. And you utilize that opportunity to maximize on those onesie positions that you passed up on in the draft.
Yep, I agree. So let's talk about some now now by the way, Tommy mentioned a trade away that was a running back. So he got a little ahead of himself. We'll come back to that when we talk about running backs.
I
But
always
here
get a little ahead of myself.
so let's talk about trade fours in the wide receiver position. So again, using the metric that we were talking about, here's some guys that have points per target significantly below the average. Maybe they're not performing as well as they are. Top on the list I have unsurprisingly is Brian Thomas Jr. I mean, he's got 32 total targets. He only has 30 total points on the season and half PPR. That's a horrendous ratio for somebody who is essentially first or second round receiver, talent, etc. And if you watch some of the games, it just feels like it's right there and it's just not coming together. So I feel like there's regression coming. So the issue is that you have to call your shot. And like I did in the league, I traded essentially traded Abuka for Thomas. That was the main piece. Pearsall, I felt like was like a bit of a throw-in to make it happen. I had a lot of depth there. But my logic is that I'm calling my shot to be like Brian Thomas is going to take off. It's going to be better. I like what I'm seeing from an improved Jaguars offense. It's not perfect, but I'm calling my shot. It's pretty simple. And you guys could do the same thing. Some other names that are on this list. Tet McMillan is another name that's on this list. Just had a bad game. He's still by far the main guy on a team that's going to have to throw a lot. Maybe you could go get him. It's going to cost you something, but you could probably go get him now versus when he has some kind of a gigantic breakout. So maybe go try to make that. And then I've got another name here. He's a little lower on points per target, but we got Jamison Williams. Super horrifically bad game. But if you watch these games, he's doing his job. He's getting open.
He's
He's
getting separation.
He's getting the separation. He's getting close to catching some of these bombs. I feel like there's regression involved for Jamison Williams. And again, these are guys that are on the low end of what you could buy them for. Don't hear what we're not saying. Don't sell your whole team to go get these guys, but buy low compared to what their normal price would have been. Buy low, and maybe you could get some regression. You'd be calling your shot. Even if you disagree with what we're saying, you can understand the logic of how we're trying to get there. Any other trade for targets at wide receiver off the top of your head?
Um, yeah, I mean, I do have one that the Brian Thomas one is a big one. That we actually off show we've been talking a lot as well too. But I do still really feel that DJ Moore is a trade for target. I think he's going to have a bounce back week, bounce back after this year, whether he gets traded or whether he gets refined into the system a little bit more. They are on a bye this week. That means that they can make some moves potentially, if he finds his way somewhere else. But I think he is a person that I would be interested in trying to get on my roster for very low right now.
Okay. And again, like you try to buy low if
Yeah,
you can.
maybe you could sell Romeo Dobbs for DJ Moore.
You probably could, but I don't. I agree with Tommy's logic. I don't know if I agree with the player, but
That's fine.
we'll see about that.
You know,
But that's how trades are. People can see
you can agree
people
or disagree.
differently.
It's all good.
So let's talk about tight ends. So tight ends are very similar in terms of the metric. We're gonna again talk about targets and points per target. Target leaders for tight end thus far in the year: Jake Ferguson, Trey McBride, Juwan Johnson, Tyler Warren, Brock Bowers, Harold Fannin, believe it or not, Hunter Henry, Kyle Pitts, Bretton Strange, Kelsey, and Joku Laporta. So like we said, we want to targets are nice and they matter obviously, but I want to look at the points per target metric. And so the average of the top 12 tight ends is 1.72 points per target. Makes sense to me, a little bit less than wide receivers.
Mhm.
And so here's some notable players above and below that metric that you might want to start to take a look at. So here's some tradeaways, guys that are performing well over and above. Highest on this list, it shouldn't be surprising just considering how he scored, especially recently, Dallas Goedert. So not only is he a name and he's probably well owned in a lot of your leagues, he is significantly overperforming on an offense that doesn't like to pass the ball. So maybe you could capitalize, go get something like more of a more established tight end or put him in a piece with a trade to go get something. Again, don't hear what we're not saying. Don't just remove him from your team, but he would be 100% the top of my list. And then I got a bit of a controversial name. So we got Tucker Kraft, who's basically been in our must starts, and he is on a valuable offense or whatever. Um, but the same issue with him that I see with Romeo Dobbs in that they're going to be valuable, but there's so many pass catching options in Green Bay at this point, and there's going to be more to come ascend, more that will ascend, slash Watson coming back. His price is at his absolute highest right now. And so when you see a guy that they're priced at its highest, I can't emphasize this enough. When they're at their highest, you sell. And it's just simple math of it of how it works. Um, any other tight end names, or do you agree with the ones that I brought up?
Yeah, I do think that Bowers is somebody that I potentially may be looking to sell based on, and you may have to
Just
bite the
name
bullet on
value
this
then.
one. Yeah, you might have to bite the bullet on this one a little bit because you might not get the value, like, the same quality of value, but you might find somebody that is like, hey, it's still Brock Bowers. He could pop off this year. I'm gonna trade for him. Again, trading away onesie positions, I feel sometimes are a little bit easier, especially with the name attached to them, than it is that for a wide receiver position at times. Because then you could get what you want to return and then you could stream that onesie
Yes.
position.
I,
Especially if you got depth, like, in some leagues that if you have a really, really deep league and you have a second tight end, which we never anticipate you guys to have a second tight end on your roster. But there are some leagues when you have 9, 10, 11 bench spots, including IR spots. You're like, what else can I put on my roster here?
well, right. Versus, somebody who's not doing nothing for your team. But I would just caution to be like, again, just because you may want to make a roster work for you, you don't sell your team for nothing.
No, of
You,
course.
you get value in return. I would normally agree with you on the Bowers thing, except I want to see him get at least one good game in, and then and then it's something to capitalize on.
The problem is with Bowers, if he gets one good game in, it just starts the upward trend. So, at that
Maybe.
point, you're not selling him at that point. You're not even thinking about selling him at that point.
I
But
don't know.
Um, you know, I don't know. I think now is the time before if it does or there's a massive regression.
Let's talk about some trade for candidates. So it's these are some funny names on the list, but if you're gonna go get them, now's your chance. So again, they're underperforming in terms of points per target. Again, just for the first 4 weeks. Believe it or not, Trey McBride is the most notable name on that list. It's gonna be hard. We know, we're saying it's gonna be hard to get him, but considering his standards, it's you might be able to try to make that happen. It's been a bit of an underperformance because of, Marvin Harrison finally had a good game, Kyler being, ridiculous in different scenarios leading up to now. If you're gonna go get him, you probably have a chance to go get him now. So maybe you can do something where you sell Brock Bowers and something maybe and go get Trey McBride. If you wanted to do that, maybe you could do Tucker Kraft plus something to go get Trey McBride. Maybe. I don't know. It depends on your league.
Yeah.
Now would be the time to go get him. Another name on this list, his points per target's only at 1.2, is Jawan Johnson. Again, he had just had a bad game, and people are very fickle with tight ends. He is going to be must start for the entire year. You might want to try to go get him if you can. And honestly, because people picked him up off the waiver wire, people might be more inclined to sell him to you at a very low price. So keep in keep, keep in mind. Now, again, tight ends, it tends to be very roller coastery as the things happen. So you judge how much you want to get rid of to go get things. You could also stream off the waiver wire. So I don't want to overreact to things, but I would love to acquire Trey McBride. I would love it, but it's
Come
again,
get him. Come get him.
right. Well, I'm not going to sell my entire team.
You don't want to
So
sell your soul?
to the devil himself. No, no. But I just wanted to, from a metric perspective, those two names are the ones that are jumping off to me. Any other names before we run and jump into running back here?
No, I agree with those guys. I think Trey McBride and Juwan Johnson should be, trade for, or potentially if you're the owner of one of those guys and you have depth at that position, and you're willing to play the streamer opportunity game, trading away could be a good opportunity.
They can't be both trade for and trade away.
I mean, I traded away Juwan Johnson, but I also would trade for him. So, if you need him.
All right. Okay. Good logic here. Let's
Great
go.
logic.
Let's go into running backs. Running backs are a little bit different. Obviously, these running backs are not getting targets in the same way. You could measure running backs by touches, but it doesn't apply in the exact same way that wide receivers and tight ends do. The way that game scripts go for them, it doesn't mean exactly the same things. You could have a running back getting 32 carries and he ends up with 67 yards, and it have nothing to do with him per se. So one of the things that I care about most when it comes to running backs is, other than narrative stuff, which is like watching them, how do they look? What are they doing? What are the teams doing? Is I care about their schedules and I care about matchups and I care about game scripts. We say it all the time. We just talked about Derrick Henry on one of our shows. When the Ravens are winning, they're bullies. Derrick Henry will bash it down your face. It'll be great. He'll have 200 yards rushing. When the Ravens are losing, he's not even on the field, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of running backs that have that similar kind of game script type of stuff, and game script matters and schedule matters. So let's talk about some guys with some positive game scripts and guys that you would, and in terms of narrative street, what their performance has been relative to running back schedules that are going forward. So the best running back schedules for the rest of the season in order. We've got the Green Bay Packers, Washington Commanders, the Vegas Raiders, and it's so miserable because I tried so hard to get Jonty, and I'm not going to be able to get him now. The Philadelphia Eagles, the LA Chargers, the New York Jets, the Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Cincinnati Bengals, and the Kansas City Chiefs in that order. As you get started down the list, it starts to get a bit more parabolic and less confined. But at the top of the list, man, this is why we keep talking about you and I keep talking about Washington on the waiver wire shows, is we don't really know who the guy is going to be, but Washington, there's going to be value there. So
I don't think Washington knows.
they don't. But with these metrics, I want to point out guys that you can go get. So let's start with who you can go get. At this point, you could probably go get Breece Hall. He's got the sixth best running back schedule going forward, and he 100% has underperformed thus far. After week one, it hasn't been the best. I got it. Trading for anybody on the New York Jets seems like blasphemy. It seems like the worst thing you could possibly do. And believe me, I'm right there with you, but it's all a matter of what you think they're going to do. He's going into a contract year. This is his contract year. Um, the owner who owns him probably is looking to get rid of him. They don't want to get out of that stock. Breece Hall could 100% be an option.
They probably didn't want to trade. They probably didn't want to draft him either.
Probably not. So keep an eye, see, and again, don't hear what we're not saying. Don't trade away your whole team, but you could probably go and acquire Breece Hall on the cheap. And here's another name. Okay, this one's going to cost you, but relative to what his performance should be, Saquon Barkley. Okay, now Tom and I have been lamenting this horrific Eagles offense thus far, tush pushing their way to a victory every single week. They're not going to be able to do it every single week. There's gonna be some regression to Saquon Barkley being Saquon Barkley. The Eagles have the Saquon Barkley has the fourth best running back schedule going forward. And believe it or not, even as high as he is, he's at the lowest cost you could possibly get him. He's only been ha in half PPR. He's basically had 16, 14, 16 points a game. This is
Yeah,
Saquon Barkley.
I feel like if they do win every single week by tush push by like, week 9 or 10, Roger Goodell is going to allow 13 men on the defense every single week.
Everybody gets Desmond Watson.
Yes.
So like we said, it's going to cost you, but if you can, 100% go get. Let me give you an example of somebody that I would try to trade Saquon Barkley for. Uh, it might not go through, but Travis Etienne, obviously, I would go get him. But let me give you some other names. Kyron Williams, I would trade in a heartbeat for Saquon Barkley at the moment. Think about some other guys that might be overperforming at the higher end of the list. Try to go get him. If I had, like I would be really trying to get him at this point before he has his, 38-point game. So now's your chance if you need to go get him. And the last name here,
I think I just sent a trade right now.
okay. And the last I'm glad I could bolster your feelings about it. The last name here, it's less about schedule, it's more about narrative street. So Travion Henderson. So Tommy and I want to take a victory lap this season for advising everybody for that rookie running backs not named Ashton Johnson and Omarion Hampton should not have been drafted as high as they were during draft season because we knew that the way that rookie running backs typically come in, the way that coaches typically are, blah, 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 they're going to take a while for them to work out. But when that transition happens, it's going to be great. And we think we've already started to see a little bit of that with RJ Harvey. We have not quite seen that yet for Travion Henderson, but we're seeing a little bit of signs from that. So if you need to get in on him, he's at his lowest cost right now. You could probably go and get him at this point before that pops off. Do you agree with that?
No, I definitely do.
Yeah, very very narrative, but it holds true. Basically, we see this all the time. So let's talk about some tradeaways at running back here. So and I know that I know that Tommy agrees with some of these names. So let's talk about Travis Etienne. The Jacksonville Jaguars have the worst running back schedule going forward, and it's not close. It's like the Jaguars and then everybody else. And his price right now is gigantic. It will never be higher than what his price is right now. On top of that, you throw in Bashal Tutin eating into a lot of his touches. He could be a great tradeaway candidate for you. Thankfully, there's been a number of people in a lot of our leagues that have been trying to trade me Travis Etienne, and I have been denying every single one of them because they're asking for the sun and the moon to go get him. So I would try to capitalize if you can, because it's to me it's only going to go down from here. So see what you could get for him. Another name on this list is Ken Walker. Ken Walker, aka Glass Joe from Mike Tyson's Punch Out. The injury is bound to happen. I don't want to ever call for it. But at the moment, even if it necessarily doesn't happen in that way, his price is basically at his highest that it'll ever be. Charbonnet is going to eat into his work for the rest of the year. This past game, I think Charbonnet was injured, so he didn't get on the field as much. So it's going to happen throughout the year. And also, you have the built-in injury situation, which will basically undercut him. So if you could capitalize on him now, I would try to get out of that. And Tommy, I mean, we've talked about Bucky Irving forever. Why don't you like count some of the reasons here?
Okay. Bucky Irvin, like I said in our Tuesday show, was he had a decent game against the Eagles, right? Um, Even without, I guess, maybe RB low end RB2 numbers without that 72-yard reception touchdown. But Bucky Irvin's overperforming. You know, he's you can't go on big plays because big plays don't happen every single week. They don't happen every single play. You know, he is a money shot guy every single week. So I'm not. He's trying to go for that end zone every single play, and it doesn't happen. And sometimes when you go that heavy that hard and heavy to try to do that, that's when injuries happen as well too. So I think, and we saw a little bit of a scare, in that game that he went down and he was out for a little bit. But then he came back better than ever. I just think you need to. He's somebody that I would trade away completely right now. He was our complete stay away from target, um, unless you were keeping him as a 14th round keeper from the previous year. But he definitely should be somebody that you would be willing to move on from right now at the value that you're. I mean, I trade Bucky Irvin for and try to get Saquon Barkley right now.
Absolutely. You might be able to pull that off
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
well, you're right now you'd be trading the RB10 for the RB12, with the RB12 most likely finishing in the top five by the end of the year.
Absolutely. And like it's and also like if you just watch what's going on, like Bucky Irving, he cannot continue to play like that and not get injured throughout the year. Like the amount of like first of all, he's on the injury report this week just from sheer exhaustion. Like
I,
like it's
I,
unbelievable.
yeah, I mean, and I would probably say to a lot of people, Derrick Henry's performance is, again, his performance is not great, has not been wonderful, but the problem is he's not on the field as we just discussed. I don't see that happening for the rest of the season. In order for this team to be more established and to win games and to control games, they need him to be on the field. So I would say he should be a trade four category person right now, and you could buy low or lower on him with some managers still see the value. I have him in 40% of leagues right now, and I still see the value, so it would be a really tough sell for me to pass on from him. But I think he could be a nice category person to try to trade for if the owner is just giving up on him completely.
Well, that's fine. And I know you brought up Judkins as a trade as an other trade away candidate more from a narrative perspective.
Yep.
Um, judging by the running back the schedule list here. So like we said, it would be nice to try to go get Junty, but after that game, it's just going to be almost impossible to try to go get him. I'm still trying, but it's going to be harder now after that 3 touchdown game.
Yeah, you're gonna
Um,
have to give up an arm and a leg from.
it might be worth it. See what you can roll. But some of the other names on this list, like you're not going to acquire them. Like this is the point. Like you're not going to acquire them with the idea of selling more that you could actually get it. That's not how it works. So for example, the team with the best running back schedule going forward is the Green Bay Packers. You're not going to acquire Josh Jacobs in any feasible way. That's why we didn't bring him up. But we did bring up Saquon Barkley because obviously his performance thus far has not been commensurate with a Saquon Barkley pick. That's sort of the idea with trades. It's just very simple economics: buy low, sell high. I would say among all the guys that we talked about, maybe we should just for the sake of everybody, maybe talk about our biggest target per position. As we talked about and wide receiver position, I would say the biggest trade away from the biggest trade away from me was Ibuka, and the biggest trade for was Brian Thomas. What about you?
I'd say the biggest trade away for me, probably is Cortland Sutton.
Okay, but you agree about the Brian Thomas?
Um, to
I
an
know.
extent, I'm kind of a little on and off wishy-washy with him. I think the trade for I'm 100% on board for Jamison Williams because he's not performing to what he should, and he will take over to an extent at some point.
Okay. Tight ends, our biggest trade away. I think we both agree on. Well, I think we both agree on Dallas Goedert, but we also like in terms of even more value, Tucker Craft. Where I think we're in the same boat.
Yeah.
And trade for if you can, Trey McBride, if you
Yeah,
can.
Trey McBride is I would try to trade for him right now based on where, and again, you're not talking about, draft position anymore. We're at week 5. And if somebody's hooked on draft position, as you're trying to trade them, well, they might not be the person. You have to try to convey them and make them understand. Well, draft position does not matter anymore.
Yeah,
We
draft
have
position, trade away Malik Neighbors for,
yeah. Yeah, you have Malik Neighbors on IR. You know what? How about I trade you Malik Neighbors for Trey McBride? Is that fair? Is that fair? No. No. Draft position doesn't matter anymore. Production is what matters. To an extent, draft position may convey a little bit if they're obviously performing, but if they're not performing, you got to make a move. If you don't make a move, you're digging yourself a grave.
and at the running back position, I think we're in complete agreement on every one of the names. Like it's just it's pretty obvious to us. We tend to agree more at the running back position than we do at wide receiver in general on our outlook of things, and so we
Yeah.
agree on that. I would say it to me, it's like you need to capitalize on ETN and Irving, especially do it like now. Um,
Yeah.
but by the way, I have no problem with people disagreeing with what we're saying about Ken Walker. If you believe Ken Walker will stay healthy, fine. But then like God bless you. Like you get what you want. But um, and the trade fours, yeah. Like if you can, God, if you can, Saquon will. You're just waiting for the 38,000 point game. Like it's just gonna happen. So see if you could get in before that happens, man.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
any other interesting names you want to bring up? I mean, just real quick as you formulate, like you guys got to remember, this is a perfect point in the season to start making those moves. I don't know when the deadline is. Like from this point on, you only have like X amount of weeks to actually make something happen that can make a difference for your team. On top of the fact of there haven't been any bye weeks yet. So after this week, you start having a consideration like, well, does somebody have a bye week? Doesn't they have a bye week? So, like a lot of things, like after bye weeks are concerned, I try to go get a guy that already came off of a bye week in lieu of somebody equal that might have not had a bye week yet. That's also a
Mhm.
consideration. So, as of right now, we don't have that. So, we're looking at things from a congruent perspective. So, keep that in mind as you go forward. Any other interesting notes?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we want to go to the onesie position real quick in the quarterback, I think
I
that
purposely left them off, but yeah, we can
I know.
mention it.
I just want to say one name that I think that ha will have a massive bounce back. And that name is Baker Mayfield. I would try and get him on your roster.
Good luck.
Um, yeah, I know it's hard, but I would try and get him on your roster. He's all his tools for the utility belt are coming back, and I think he's a vital opportunity to just to plug in because I'll tell you something right now. You got Drake May overperforming him. You got Caleb Williams, Daniel Jones overperforming him. Which we'll call it Patrick Mahomes overperforming him. Um, he will fit. 8 to 5 is not a massive difference, but it does at the end of the year show a lot of a lot of points on the board for him.
But I'm not even just to illustrate for people like about what you would actually trade for him and trade away. So I'm a Baker owner too. Like every guy that you named, maybe not named Patrick Mahomes, I would consider Mahomes, but like I wouldn't take any of the other names, like depending on what else you offered plus something to go get Baker
Correct.
Mayfield. But when you're like Baker's already performing well. You know what I mean? Like his stock is already high. Like if you think his stock is going to get higher, even higher than where it's at, that's pretty significant. But
Yeah. I
but
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I believe his stock is going to grow as the season goes on. That team is good. That team's only going to get better offensively.
Yeah. As a Baker owner, I could say I don't know what it would take a lot for me to trade him away. So I don't know. And also, I should point out one thing just as a closing point. I mean, and we did kind of touch upon tight ends, but I tend to avoid trading for onesie positions because, like, in my opinion, I could just kind of stream the position as needed anyway, and my value there is
Well, let's just say in our league of record, you trade for Josh Allen every single year.
no, I draft Josh Allen every year because ain't nobody drafting him until like the fourth or fifth round. I'll go ahead and jump on that, and at that point it works. But this time it didn't. But I'm doing pretty well there right now. So,
Okay.
um, So anyway, there we go. That was our bonus episode, sit repping through 4 weeks of the season, trade fours, trades away. We got the big preview show tomorrow. We got some surprises in that show. And we've got a interesting slate of week 5 games this week. We're so excited to be with you. So closing thoughts, Mr. Lang?
Yeah, if we could, if everybody, I would appreciate everybody that takes the time to jump in and tune into our special video and all our other videos. If you could please share, subscribe, and make those comments. Let us help you lead you to victory.
Thank you guys.